As the wise man Tyrion Lannister once said, a mind needs books as a sword needs a whetstone. And today is the first episode of the Game of Tomes book club and the first reading vlog where we will be discussing A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway.
Alright, well, on this episode of Game of Tomes, Emma cries and Carolyn watches.
Did I finish this book or did this book finish me? It finished me. Hello everyone and welcome to the first Game of Tomes reading vlog. I'm so excited. I am here today with Hemingway and we are going to be talking about war and love and a lot of drinking and eating spaghetti with Italians and getting injured while eating a hunk of cheese. And so many amazing things. And I'm thrilled to be going on this journey with you. So this is my very favorite Hemingway book. I am a huge Hemingway reader. I love Hemingway, but this is my very favorite and it is my first time rereading it and we are reading it for the book club. Emma actually discovered her love of Hemingway when I was visiting her in Canada when she read that book right there, which is A Movable Feast. She fell in love with Hemingway and then of course we did the Dickens versus Tolstoy book club and we had this idea of expanding it and reading more books, and I really just want her to read my favorite Hemingway, which is A Farewell to Arms, so we squeaked it into the schedule and I'm so excited to hear what she thinks about it, and I'm so excited to be rereading it for the first time because I haven't read it in so long. And I actually already started reading it, but I was reading it in this edition, and this is an old vintage modern library edition. This is the edition that I first read it in. I think I read this for the first time in 2019 and I really loved it, and that's what started my love of Hemingway's books. I thought that this was my only edition of the book, so I started reading it and annotating it slightly. So I started just putting sticky notes in here because I didn't want to write actually in the book. But I did want to make notes as I went along. I wanted to get this edition because this is the Hemingway Library edition, and it says that it includes the author's 1948 introduction, early drafts, and all the alternative endings. I believe there are about 47 alternative endings, and I don't remember, I think they're in this edition as well, but I wanted to get this edition specifically. I also have The Sun Also Rises in this edition. This is from Scribner's, and Scribner's is Hemingway's original publisher, and so they still publish his works in the Hemingway Library. So I love these editions so much, and they always have fantastic information included in them, just extra information. Anyway, so I was reading this edition, and then I was like, okay, let me order this one. So then I ordered this one, and then I went to my friend's house, Anna and Brian, and I forgot that I lent them this edition. I completely forgot that I had this edition because I gave it to them so long ago, and they never read it. How rude. How disrespectful. I'm just kidding. I don't mind. But I completely forgot that I gave this edition to them for them to borrow. So I didn't have to buy this one. This one also has the alternative endings as well, but it's from Vintage Classics. It's from like the Vintage Red Spine series. So, silly me. And then I remembered that I bought myself this edition a while ago, and this is a Vintage Penguin Books, which I of course don't want to annotate or read because it is quite old and I just don't want to mess it up. So now I have 4 copies of A Farewell to Arms. I mean, I'm not complaining. I just thought that that was funny because initially I thought I only had 1 copy of it, and now I have 4. So isn't that great? So I thought I would go through my annotations that I have so far and just tell you guys my thoughts. So I will just start with the first notes that I have written down. It's right next to chapter 1. So I just wrote down, I love how sharp and clear his writing is. He paints such a vivid picture with such few lines. And then I said he's telling/showing the time of year without explicitly stating it. So I thought that I would just read you guys the opening paragraph because I love it so much. It's so Hemingway. Like if I had to pick one paragraph to describe Hemingway's writing, I feel like I would just pick the first paragraph of A Farewell to Arms because I think it captures what he does so well, so beautifully. Okay, here it goes. Chapter 1. In the late summer of that year, we lived in a house in a village that looked across the river and the plain to the mountains. That's the first sentence. Like, it's so vivid. I don't know. It's very clear. He's not really adding a lot of floweriness to it or lyricism, but it's just still so vivid. Okay. In the bed of the river, there were pebbles and boulders, dry and white in the sun, and the water was clear and swiftly moving and blue in the channels. Again, it's just the way that he writes it. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just very honest and true, and that's what he always wanted out of his writing, so he's doing a very good job. Okay. Troops went by the house and down the road, and the dust they raised powdered the leaves of the trees. The trunks of the trees, too, were dusty, and the leaves fell early that year, and we saw the troops marching along the road, and the dust rising, and leaves stirred by the breeze, falling, and the soldiers marching, and afterward the road bare and white, except for the leaves. And then the second paragraph, I just need to read a little bit more. I can't help myself. The plain was rich with crops. There were many orchards of fruit trees, and beyond the plain the mountains were brown and bare. There was fighting in the mountains, and at night we could see the flashes from the artillery. In the dark it was like summer lightning, but the nights were cool, and there was not the feeling of a storm coming. I want to keep going. Oh my god, it's just so good. Okay, so before I keep going, I feel like I should give you a little bit of background and a little synopsis, and they write it really well on the Scribner's edition, so I will just read it because if I try to explain it, it will turn into a whole novel. Anyway, okay, so written when Hemingway was 30 years old and lauded as the best American novel to emerge from World War I, A Farewell to Arms is the unforgettable story of an American ambulance driver on the Italian front and his passion for a beautiful English nurse. Set against the looming horrors of the battlefield, this gripping, semi-autobiographical work captures the harsh realities of war and the pain of lovers caught in its inexorable sweep. Ernest Hemingway famously said that he rewrote the ending to A Farewell to Arms 39 times to get the words right. This edition collects all of the alternate endings, along with early drafts of other essential passages, offering new insights into Hemingway's craft and creative process and the evolution of one of the greatest novels of the 20th century, featuring Hemingway's own 1948 introduction to an illustrated reissue of the novel, a personal foreword by the author's son Patrick Hemingway, and a new introduction by the author's grandson Sean Hemingway. This edition of A Farewell to Arms is truly a celebration, which is exactly why I wanted this specific edition. So that gives you a little background of what the story is about. So it's basically like a semi-autobiographical account of Hemingway being an ambulance driver in Italy during the war. And there's this one line that says, and this is chapter 1, "At the start of the winter came the permanent rain, and with the rain came the cholera. But it was checked, and in the end, only 7,000 died of it in the army." And when I read that, I was just thinking, I wrote down on my sticky note, only 7,000? Only 7,000. I think that just shows you the gravity of the situation and just life at war. It's so heartbreaking. And I also want to transfer my notes into this edition because I don't want, like I said, to annotate this one, so I want to do that in a little bit. Oh, and then this next sticky note says, "I love how they're eating spaghetti and wine in Italy, so Italian," because I am Italian-American, so I love the fact that this is set in Italy. I do want to read a lot more Italian literature this year, or at least stories set in Italy, and so this being one of them. But anyway, yes, so it says, "That night in the mess after the spaghetti course," like I love that they're at war and they're having spaghetti. Like, Of course they are. Which everyone ate very quickly and seriously, lifting the spaghetti on the fork until the loose strands hung clear, then lowering it into the mouth, or else using a continuous lift and sucking into the mouth, helping ourselves to wine from the glass-covered gallon flask. It swung in a metal cradle, and you pulled the neck of the flask down with the forefinger, and the wine, clear red, tannic and lovely, poured out into the glass held with the same hand. After this course, the captain commenced picking on the priest. It just felt so Italian, and I loved that. And of course we have the different Italian characters, and oh my gosh, this is another one. I said, this feels so authentically Italian, and I love it. Okay, so there's this one scene where this group of soldiers and this priest are telling our main character that on his leave he should visit one of the other characters' family and where he should go. You should go on leave. You should go to Rome, Naples, Sicily. You should go to Amalfi, said the lieutenant. I will write you cards to my family in Amalfi. They will love you like a son. I loved that they will love you like a son, because it's so Italian. This other sticky note says, explaining his role without saying this is exactly what I do. I was just trying to make note of Hemingway's writing techniques because I think he's obviously I think he's an incredible writer, and as a writer myself, I always like to pay attention to those things, like how does he construct a sentence? How does he explain things to the reader? Does he show? Does he tell? How does he write his descriptions? And what do I like about his writing? Trying to figure out, I guess, sort of how he makes his stories work. Another thing that I love about this book is that he shows you really well the woman's role of war, and we are following this nurse, Catherine, who we are also seeing her perspective and what she goes through, and this scene shows you really well what it's like for Catherine during the war. The Italians didn't want women so near the front, so we're all in very special behavior. We don't go out. I can come here, though. Oh yes, we're not cloistered. Let's drop the war. It's very hard. There's no place to drop it. Let's drop it anyway. All right. We looked at each other in the dark. I thought she was very beautiful, and I took her hand. She let me take it, and I held it and put my arm under her arm. No, she said. I kept my arm where it was. Why not? No. Yes, I said. Please. And we do have that very masculine character that's always in Hemingway's books, but I do really like how he is giving voice to the women of this story as well, which is always very much appreciated. So right now I am on chapter 11, and I am going to transfer some of my annotations into this edition, but something that I did want to mention that I always find really interesting about Hemingway's life, I did watch a documentary about Hemingway's life. I think it was PBS. He really was inspired by his own experience because he did fall in love with a nurse while he was injured as an ambulance driver in the war, and he had a very hard time getting over that relationship because she, I believe, ended it very abruptly. That doesn't really spoil what happens in this story. This story is very different, and I just feel like it really makes this story come to life so much. I think that's why I also love it so deeply, is because I know that what this character went through is based off of what Hemingway himself went through, and I am just fascinated by authors' lives, and I love learning more about these kinds of things. Anyway, that is my update for now. I will update you guys again as I read more, but I am just adoring this reread so much. I'm so glad, and I can't wait to keep reading. What don't you understand?
Okay, give me a second. I have like 5 pages.
Okay. You're almost there?
Oh my god.
finish? Are you okay? Emma just finished the book. Were you expecting that ending?
Yeah. I think it's a good ending.
Okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a really big contrast to the war.
Absolutely.
I don't know why that got me. Like, I knew exactly what happened, and it still got me.
Yeah.
Did you know it was coming the first time?
I had a feeling.
Did you?
I did. Yeah. I feel like you can kind of sense it. Like, I think it's foreshadowed quite a few times.
Yeah.
And I think I made a note of it in one of the first few chapters, but yeah, I definitely feel like he kind of prepares you for it in a way without actually telling you that it's gonna happen.
Man, just like, I have never felt a stronger, like, the end.
Right? Oh.
Like, it's just like...
Kind of like a punch in the face. Yep. An Ernest Hemingway punch in the face. You still like it more than The Sun Also Rises?
Yeah, I like this so much more than The Sun Also Rises.
Okay.
Probably like 4.5.
No.
What?
Oh my god, that's great. No, I'm so excited.
Maybe 5. Like, I want to read more about it, though.
Oh my gosh, okay. Well, yeah, now that you have finished it, definitely do a bit of research.
Yeah.
Because there's so much interesting information. It's because it's semi-autobiographical. It's really cool to see what was similar and what was different to his own experience.
That's so rough.
I know.
Wow. Did it make you cry?
It did.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Mm-hmm. So one of those, like, cathartic cries.
Well,
another Hemingway done and dusted.
Man, why'd you do this to me? Oh my god, some of these alternate endings.
Alright, well, on this episode of Game of Tomes, Emma cries and Carolyn watches. Hello again, everyone. It is now January 23rd, and I am a little more than halfway through A Farewell to Arms. I am on chapter 27, and I am adoring it. I'm loving it so much. This reread is amazing. I'm loving it even more than I read it for the first time, and I have a goal for myself today. So, as you guys saw, Emma did finish the book before me. She finished it a week ago or a week and a half ago, and I am still only about halfway through because I have just been super busy with my other work and I really want to prioritize my reading. So today I thought I would have a mini readathon, just dedicate today to reading A Farewell to Arms, and I am quite the slow reader, so it's going to take me a few hours, and I thought it would just be fun to make it kind of a readathon, update you guys, film for this vlog, and finish this amazing reread. I do have some updates that I want to share with you. Oh, there are so many. I don't think I want to go into spoilers for this vlog just because I want to make sure that everybody can watch it. Okay, one of my favorite things that Hemingway does is the way that he combines war and love, and this page shows it perfectly because this book is not only a war story, it's also a story of love. It's a love story between our main character Frederick Henry and this nurse Catherine Barclay. Right now in this scene, it is on page 62. Let's see what chapter. It's chapter 11. And in this scene, Frederick Henry, our main character, is talking to the priest that is with the men at the front or near the front. They say, "Then it's hopeless? It is never hopeless, but sometimes I cannot hope. I try always to hope, but sometimes I cannot. Maybe the war will be over. I hope so. What will you do then? If it is possible, I will return to Abruzzi." So they're talking about the war, and the way that the men talk about war throughout the whole book is just so impactful. So then on the same page lower down, then they start talking about God, and then Frederick Henry says, "I'm afraid of him in the night sometimes," and the priest says, "You should love him." "I don't love much." "Yes," he said, "you do. What you tell me about in the nights, that is not love, that is only passion and lust. When you love, you wish to do things for, you wish to sacrifice for, you wish to serve. I don't love." "You will. I know you will. Then you will be happy." "I'm happy. I've always been happy." "It is another thing. You cannot know about it unless you have it." "Well," I said, "if I ever get it, I will tell you." And it's just a beautiful example of how he combines the conversation of war is always sort of a conversation about love at the same time. It always leads one to the other. Whether they're talking about war, it leads to love. When they're talking about love, it kind of leads to war. And this is throughout the whole book, and what I love so much about this book is it's not only battle scenes. There are very few battle scenes. It's not only about the strategic side of war and battle. It's mainly about how the war is affecting our characters and how that kind of leads to their conversations on love. And I love it so much. Okay, I don't want to give any spoilers like I said, but there is so much foreshadowing in this book that the first time when I read it, I didn't realize it was foreshadowing. I had an idea that it might be foreshadowing, but I wasn't sure. And the ending is quite tragic, as you could tell from Emma's reaction when I filmed her when we were FaceTiming. But there is so much foreshadowing, and there is a theme or a symbol of rain. And whenever rain is part of the story, it symbolizes something, and I don't want to give that away, but just look out for rain, or if you have read it, haven't read it, rain is a really big theme or a really big symbol, and the way that Hemingway puts it in very bluntly, it's just so strong. Like the symbolism is so strong, and I love his attention to that. So I don't think this is necessarily a spoiler, but our main character, Frederick Henry, gets wounded and ends up in a hospital in Milan, and then after that he has to go back to the front. So now that he is back at the front after he is recovered, he is talking to the priest again, and they are talking about the fighting and how they had a really hard summer and that they're hoping that the fighting will soon end, and the priest is thinking that both sides will just stop fighting, and Frederick is saying no because technically the Austrians had won the last battle. So they're talking about that, and it says, "We are all gentler now because we are beaten. How would our Lord have been if Peter had rescued him in the garden? He would have been just the same." "I don't think so," I said. "You discourage me," he said. "I believe and I pray that something will happen. I have felt it very close." "Something may happen," I said, "but it will happen only to us. If they felt the way we do, it would be all right, but they have beaten us. They feel another way. Many of the soldiers have always felt this way. It is not because they are beaten. They were beaten to start with. They were beaten when they took them from their farms and put them in the army. That is why the peasant has wisdom, because he is defeated from the start. Put him in power and see how wise he is." I just loved that. They were beaten to start with. They were beaten when they took them from their farms and put them in the army. That is why the peasant has wisdom, because he is defeated from the start. Put him in power and see how wise he is. I don't know. I just loved that so much. Alright, I think that is all that I wanted to share as my update for now. I could talk about way more, even about the scenes when he's at the hospital in Milan with Catherine, but I don't want to get into too many spoilers, so I think that's all I'm going to share. It is such a gloomy day out. It is currently raining, and I have a candle burning, and I'm feeling very cozy, and I'm excited to have a day for just reading. Guys, it started snowing. Oh my gosh. I turned around to look outside and I realized that it was snowing and I got so excited. Oh my gosh. It has not snowed at all yet this year because it has been quite warm, and every time we get rain, it's always rain and it never turns into snow. But it turned into snow and I'm so happy. Oh, I'm loving this so much. I just reached book 4. In this edition, which is the Hemingway Library from Scribner's, there are some manuscript pages that they have put in the book, and oh my gosh, don't read them if you don't want a spoiler. But I reread them, and a few of them were his drafts, like his handwritten drafts for his ending, and I reread it. And it was already so painful, and I obviously haven't got to the end yet, but I read it and my heart broke. Yeah, there's a typewritten page of the end. I really can't say too much because everything that has happened that I've read so far today is kind of a spoiler, or if it's farther into the book, so I don't want to say too much. What I can say is rain. Rain. A lot of rain. A lot of rain. And I can't even tell you how many times I have highlighted the word rain for a very specific reason. But it's throughout the whole book, and wow, just Hemingway and rain, man. I'm never gonna see rain the same way again. I remember feeling this way when I first read the book about rain having such a strong effect on the story and being such a strong symbol, and thinking I'm never going to see rain the same way again, and I think that's how I'm going to feel again for a little while after having finished this book again. But yes, I also wanted to tell you guys that I am lightly annotating it, as you guys saw earlier in this vlog, but I am using these sticky tabs that I got from a subscriber, which is so great, and I felt like they matched the book really well. I'm not doing it in any specific way. I'm actually just going by every color, so I started with the light blue, and then I did the next color, next color, next color, and I went all the way down. So I hate when I use one color more than another color, and then I run out of one before I run out of the others. So it's not color-coded, it's just kind of in a rainbow of however these are colored. So when I grab this one, then the next tab I grab is this one, and then the next tab is this one. Does that make sense? So it's not color-coded, and I'm only using blue as a highlighter. And then the sticky notes I'm using are just regular sticky notes, and then a blue pen to write, you know, thoughts on these sticky notes. So very lightly annotating this, nothing crazy, but I'm really enjoying the process. I just like having the option of like what kind of annotations you want to do. Do you want to do lighter annotations? Do you want to do heavier annotations? Like when I read Anna Karenina and War and Peace for the Dickens vs. Tolstoy book club, I heavily annotated those, and I have a whole video on how I annotated War and Peace, which is just like my extreme annotations. Oh my gosh, the flakes are getting so thick. Oh, I'm getting so excited. I hope it's gonna stick. It's not looking like it's sticking, but it looks like it's just melting when it hits the ground. But anyway, less than 100 pages, so let's do this and possibly cry. I have a feeling I'm going to shed a tear or two. Hello everyone, it is the next day. In typical me fashion, I did not finish reading A Farewell to Arms yesterday. I ended up just working for the rest of the day, but I did reach book 5 of A Farewell to Arms, which is the last book. I am on chapter 38, and I only have about 30 pages left, so I am very excited to finish it today, and I am not ready to cry, but I have a feeling that I'm going to. As I keep saying, I don't want to talk about too many spoilers, but there was one particular paragraph that I loved so much and I just wanted to read out to you guys. It is on page 216, and it is in chapter 34. Often a man wishes to be alone and a girl wishes to be alone too, and if they love each other, they are jealous of that in each other. But I can say we never felt that. We could feel alone when we were together, alone against the others. It has only happened to me like that once. I have been alone while I was with many girls, and that is the way that you can be most lonely. But we were never lonely and never afraid when we were together. I know that the night is not the same as the day, that all things are different, that the things of the night cannot be explained in the day, because they do not then exist, and the night can be a dreadful time for lonely people once their loneliness has started. But with Catherine there was almost no difference in the night except that it was an even better time. If people bring so much courage to this world, the world has to kill them to break them, so of course it kills them. The world breaks everyone, and afterward many are strong at the broken places. But those that will not break, it kills. It kills the very good and the very gentle and the very brave impartially. If you are none of these, you can be sure it will kill you too. But there will be no special hurry. I was just blown away by that and complete and utter wow. I do have quite a few other tabs that I made notes of, but I don't want to go into spoilers, so you will have to wait for the debate at the end of February, or the debate, not really a debate, the live show at the end of February, where Emma and I go into spoilers about A Farewell to Arms and Once There Was a War by John Steinbeck. So anyway, I'm going to get reading the last 30 pages, and then it's going to be over, and I'm going to be sad. I need a minute. I don't really know what to say. How do I end this? I think this must be how Hemingway felt when he was finishing this book, because he didn't know how to end it either. I just finished reading the alternate endings. I think the ending that he chose was absolutely perfect. I love it. I would not change a thing. I thought it was so great that we were able to get these alternate endings from him and just see, I guess, like his thought process and the possible outcomes, because it does end quite sharply, which is not surprising because that's how the whole book reads. But a big event happens and then it just sort of stops because that's it, you know, and then that's kind of what Hemingway is saying in this alternate ending as well. So it says, I could tell what I have done since March 1918, when I walked that night in the rain back to the hotel where Catherine and I had lived, and went upstairs to our room and undressed and got into bed and slept, finally, because I was so tired. To wake the morning with the sun shining, then suddenly to realize what it was that had happened. I could tell what has happened since then, but that is the end of the story. And that was one of the options of his alternate endings, and there's another one below it. It all keeps on as long as your life keeps on, and then it keeps on. It never stops. It only stops for you. Some of it stops while you are still alive. The rest goes on, and you go on with it. On the other hand, you have to stop a story. You stop it at the end of whatever it was you were writing about. Oh God, it's just so good. It's just so good. Man, I wrote on my Instagram story, I took a picture, and I said, did I finish this book, or did this book finish me? It finished me. I am no longer here. So if you haven't read A Farewell to Arms, I highly recommend you read it, because it's my favorite Hemingway. This has firmly confirmed that this book is my favorite Hemingway, and I think the book that everyone should start their Hemingway journey with. If you joined us for the book club, thank you so much for joining us. I apologize for making you go through that. I'm so sorry, but I hope it was enjoyable and cathartic and you got something out of it. And I am just so happy to have read this with so many wonderful people and with Emma, and I can't wait to talk about it during the live show at the end of February. I can't wait to read Once There Was a War by John Steinbeck. I'm so excited, and I just don't really have anything else to say. So I think I'm just going to sit here in silence for a little bit and just contemplate all these thoughts. So yes, thank you so much for watching this vlog. I look forward to reading Once There Was a War in February, and then talking to you guys about A Farewell to Arms and Once There Was a War at the end of February for the live show, which is probably going to be on Emma's channel. So yes, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. Thank you for being here and being so lovely. I will see you soon in another video. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Game of Tomes, and happy reading!